You know that moment when you hear yourself in a video or a voice message and think, wait, is that what I sound like? Maybe you've even listened back and thought, that sounds terrible. I do not sound like that. But here's the weird part. Everyone else has been hearing that version of your voice this entire time. So why does it sound so different to you? And why do we often dislike it so much? Well, for starters, you actually hear your voice differently. When you speak, the sound of your voice reaches your ears in two different ways. The first is air conduction. Basically, the sound travels through the air from your mouth to your ears just like any other sound. But there's another pathway called bone conduction. When you speak, the vibrations produced by your voice also travel the bones in your head and reach your inner ear. So when you're talking, your brain is hearing a combination of these two signals. But when you listen to a recording of yourself, you're mainly hearing the sound that traveled through the air. You're not getting that same internal bone-conducted component. And that's why the voice coming out of your phone can sound surprisingly different from the voice you've been hearing your entire life. But why does it sound so wrong? This is where it gets interesting. It's not necessarily that your recorded voice is objectively worse. It's that you're not used to hearing it that way. You've spent your entire life experiencing your own voice through your normal combination of air and bone conduction. So when you suddenly hear a recording, you're hearing a version of your voice that doesn't match what you're accustomed to. And your brain basically goes, that doesn't sound like me. Your own recorded voices also suggested that these reactions aren't the same for everyone. People can have both positive and negative impressions of their recorded voices, and those impressions can be influenced by individual characteristics. So it's not as simple as saying everyone hates their voice because of bone conduction. And you might actually get used to it. Here's the part I find most interesting. A recent study looked at how different characteristics relate to people's impressions of their own recorded voices. One factor they examined was how frequently people listen to their own recorded voice. And they found that the frequency of listening to your own recorded voice was associated with how people perceived it. So if you're someone who regularly records yourself, makes videos, practices presentations, or listens back to your own voice, your reaction to your recorded voice may not stay exactly the same. In other words, familiarity matters. And that means the first time you hear yourself on camera, your reaction might be, oh my god, I sound horrible. But after hearing yourself again and again, that voice can start to feel much more normal. So do we actually hate our voice? Not necessarily. Your recorded voice isn't necessarily worse. It's just different from the version of your voice you're used to hearing. And because we're so familiar with our own internal experience of speaking, that difference can be surprisingly uncomfortable. So the next time you hear yourself in a recording and immediately think, why do I sound like that? Remember, that's basically the voice everyone else has been hearing. You've just been hearing a slightly different version of it your entire life. And honestly, you might just need to hear yourself more often.